Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Heartland Mamas. I'm Murray Briel.
And I'm Heidi Henry, and we're coming to you from the edge of the Great Red Divide.
In our newly renovating, because we're still under construction, studio, but we couldn't be away from you for that much longer.
And today on Renovation Day, Murray, we have started and stopped 6 times.
I think it's more like 12.
And we've gotten almost all the way to the end.
So this should be a heck of a show, folks.
We're determined to get this one done right. It's just been...
Technical issues.
Technical difficulties.
User error.
We're trying to get used to how things are right now, and we're still under construction. So
we're going to have some new backdrops and some exciting things coming up. So please subscribe, like, share. Heartland Mamas, MAMAS.
There's even a donate button on our...
Oh my goodness, a donate button.
On our webpage.
That would be so nice.
Yeah.
Please.
That helps us. It's helping us stay more acoustically correct.
Yes.
Better insulated so we don't freeze to death this winter.
Yes, that's really important.
And keeping us on the air. So those donations really do help.
So since we've been gone for a week, we figured we would do a real quick twit this week in Trump.
This week in Trump, yes.
When we're going to go through last week. So we weren't on the edge of another war. We were on the cusp of impeachment, which the House voted to go ahead and officially start the inquiry.
Yes.
He had a lot of
poor public relations issues.
And he had a lot of real experiences, which I think that the president doesn't get because of the insulation that he faces.
He surrounds himself with yes people who surround themselves with yes people who surround themselves with this weird media bubble that he's created of talking heads, of opinionated pundits that love him. And so when he surrounds himself in this nest of fluff, when he goes out in the real world and goes to Chicago, where we were a week ago, he gets protested by 60,000 people. When he goes to the World Series game, he gets booed. When he goes to a UFC fight in New York, he gets booed. So we're going to unpack some of that for you.
And I wonder, several times we have seen throughout the course of this administration, especially in the early days, a lot of leaking about how in order to get the president's ear, you have to do things that favor him. You have to put in, if you want him to pay attention to a security briefing, you need to put in a good news article. He likes pictures, not words. There's a lot of things that they do, which is not unusual. Each president learns differently. Each president has a preferred method of gaining information.
But crayons, Murray, crayons and construction paper, not the way to run a country. So,
permanent marker on map. That's all I'm saying.
Oh my God.
Just saying permanent marker's a fan of the administration's a fan of the Sharpie.
The new Sharpie thing is to draw glasses on him because he doesn't like to be seen in his glasses. That's hilarious.
But a part of me has to wonder if some of this isn't done by his staff and his top advisors to avoid the fallout that they would face. So it's done selfishly as opposed to being in favor of the president.
Oh, yeah. By keeping him insulated, he's happier.
He's like happier because his personality is so fragile, hostile and can be so angry.
Combustible.
Yes, combustible. That's an excellent word.
Well,
so I think that part of the reason that they do these things and these small things that seem so inconsequential actually really matter.
They do. And when you're governing a country and you are an irate 2-year-old, things are difficult.
He's made it very difficult for the legislative branch, the GOP, to support him. And they still are, as everyone has been talking about with the
blockade in the Senate. by Uncle Mitch.
Uncle Mitch. We'll tell you an Uncle Mitch story. You'll have to tune in and be a subscriber. It'll be a special treat. We also will give you an uprising story.
Oh, yeah. We've got 2 special, like 4-minute videos we're going to do on an uprising and Uncle Mitch. Oh, we're going to record them today, but you have to be a subscriber to get them. So here's the other thing that that I wanted to talk about is when we were in Chicago, Murray, when we went down for the protest a week ago, the security was insane. They had streets blocked off everywhere, even parts of Michigan Avenue, which is a main thoroughfare, and parts
yeah. Well,
of
it's a
Lakeshore
large
Drive.
city. They're used to having huge crowds. They handled
Yes,
it beautifully. I know there's a lot of problems with the Chicago police. But every time I have been, and we lived in Chicago for years.
Yes.
Every time I've been to any sort of event at all in Chicago, it has always been very safe. It's very successful.
I've always felt safe in Chicago, always.
Except, Donald Trump, who came into town last Monday at the rally that we went to and spoke for a chief of police conference.
Yeah.
Decided to say that we were like worse than Afghanistan. And
they're so insulting.
That it boggles my mind that as a president, okay, so you've lost Illinois. He's not going to win.
He's never going to get Illinois.
But you're going to ask donors in Illinois for money right after he does this speech.
Yes.
And we all know that we have real-time me stuff now, right? The tubes connect and we can see what everybody's doing at the moment. So you're going to sit here and say,
horrible things about Chicago,
and then turn around an hour later and
raise $4 million
after saying terrible things about Chicago.
Well, that's
Ricketts. You're on my list.
Yeah, that's the Ricketts family, and Murray, when the Ricketts bought the Chicago Cubs, was the last day I was a Cubs fan.
I get it. You're a big GOPer. I get it, but their entire brand is Chicago.
Yes,
Chicago.
Yeah.
And you're supporting someone who in your city
hates Chicago.
Said horrible things about it.
So the Ricketts family, you own the Chicago Cubs, and you've torn up our ballpark. You've made a mess of things down by Wrigleyville, and you manipulate everybody to get anything and everything you want. And then when you don't, you pick up your toys and you want to go home. And then you invite Donald Trump to town and raise money for him after he insults us repeatedly.
And in our own city.
Yeah.
My favorite sign of all, though, was Trump puts ketchup on his hot dog.
Which is something you never do in
Chicago.
No,
you don't do it in Chicago. And I really probably believe he puts ketchup on his hot dog.
Oh, he puts ketchup on everything.
If he wasn't a race-baiting,
isolationist,
xenophobic, woman-hating piece of human excrement. If he wasn't all of those delightful things, Chicago would have thrown him out strictly for putting ketchup on his hot dog.
Exactly.
So that was a beautiful sign. That's like the least of his sins, but it's still enough to make, even the bins had signs that said, we don't want Trump Pence in Chicago.
Right.
The trash bins.
Right.
The trash doesn't even want the trash.
No, the trash doesn't want the trash. And Pence being from Indiana, which touches Illinois, where we're from, we have enough of that already. We have enough Pence getting on us, that we don't want on us.
Pence taint.
Pence taint. We don't want Pence taint. We're already Kentucky touchers.
So he had a not a particularly warm reception at the protest.
Or from the police. They were not super...
They weren't real supportive either.
No.
They were...
Well, he made up this, and the other day my husband had Terminator on. And at one point, Arnold Schwarzenegger gets on a motorcycle and he's like driving down the road shooting this ginormous gun as he was trying to kill people. And Trump makes up this story all the time that there's this motorcycle riding cop. And in one day, he can fix all the violence in Chicago. In one day. So he's been lighting this story up now since 2016. And the previous governor and the previous mayor of Chicago, with Eddie Johnson, who's our chief of police, wanted to bring this person forward. If you've got a solution that will end violence,
and love it, yeah,
whatever
absolutely.
It takes, we welcome that.
Except for sending in the National Guard.
Well,
that one didn't go over real well.
Well, that was in '68, so it was a while ago.
No, he threatened to do that.
Oh, okay.
In Chicago, Trump threatened to send in the National Guard to get the law and order under control in Chicago.
Well, this imaginary...
When we decided that we wouldn't help, that we were a sanctuary state.
Right.
We wouldn't help.
And that's another issue. And the reason Eddie Johnson, the chief of police of Chicago, sat out was over the immigration deals, the assault on immigration, legal immigration and illegal immigration by Donald Trump. and the assault on survivors that are trying to flee where they're at and seek asylum here in the United States. And Illinois, our governor, J.B. Pritzker, Lori Lightfoot, the mayor of Chicago, and Eddie Johnson have taken the strong stance that, look, this is a federal problem, and we as a city, as a country, as a state, as a community are not going to accept or do the work for ICE, period. We're not spending our resources on that. And Trump hates that. He hates that we're a sanctuary state. Well, Illinois' got financial trouble, Marie, and we can't do the work of the federal government if you want to pay us to do it. But even then, we know that it just upsets our communities, and we don't want it.
Even then, Illinois is not in favor of it.
No, we're not, because Illinois is a blended state. We are well blended. We have people from every country, every belief system, every skin color.
Because we have good universities throughout the state.
Yes.
We also have large cities.
Yes.
We're
open-minded and new ideas and new opportunities that new blood brings to our communities. And we love having people come. We love having people come. And we are not going to jeopardize our beliefs.
So we all know that Chicago hates him, right? Like Illinois, Chicago, we're not big Trump fans. It's not a big target market for him because he knows he's not going to win here.
So that's why 60,000 of us got together in front of Trump Tower.
But what I thought was really interesting was he goes to the Nationals game. Now there's some history there as well.
Yes.
There is definitely issues with him and being
an asshole. Oh, did I say that?
Not inviting the Nationals to the White House prior, not wanting to throw out the first pitch, which
he thinks he's too fat.
This is hilarious.
I know. It came out that he, compared to Obama, would have been too fat.
And he didn't want to look like a fatty
Can you imagine him as, and I'm not a trim person. I would have a hard time throwing to...
But he's only 186 pounds, right?
And no, 230. He says he's 230.
230 and still like 6'4"? Right?
He's got to be 340.
Oh, gosh.
He's got to be 340.
He's pushing.
He's tall. He's tall. So
but
he carries...
he's big.
But yeah, and he carries... he wears those ridiculously large suits because he, like all of us people with weight, we wear big clothes so that we think we look smaller. Like we've been working out, it just makes us look ridiculously big, as I can attest to. But he was worried about that and the fact that he couldn't throw a ball very far.
So, he gets this insulation, and like we talked about in the beginning, insulating him, his strongest advisors. We've seen that since the beginning of his presidency.
But his advisors told him to go to the Nationals game,
His advisors and aides, right. Well, and so that makes me wonder if they're not so insulated as well.
Well, because Fox News told him he would be lauded and honored.
It was the Marine Day.
Yeah.
So it was full of veterans and
are mad at him for walking out on the Kurds.
But it likely makes sense in their minds that he would be supported at the Nationals game. It's a military game.
He's on the Jumbotron, and I've watched
and he starts waving.
He starts waving, and he looks over at Melania, and he smiles because he thinks that they're cheering
for him.
And all of a sudden his face falls because he realizes that they're booing and chanting "Lock him up."
Oh, yeah.
And then he looks like he was going to break into tears, which I don't feel sorry for him at all.
How awkward is it if you're Matt Gaetz and the rest of the crew that are obsessed with him, that are his loyal sycophants?
Yeah.
When you're there like, yeah, hey, Mr. President, clap, clap. Yeah, that's great. Oh, they're booing. Oh, they give me a long car ride home. Somebody call me an Uber. I don't think I want to go with him. It's not going to be fun.
He's going to have a toddler meltdown.
What emotional do you go through in that moment? He's going to be mad. He's going to have a fit. And, I bet they're thinking, you heard it wrong, Mr. President.
That's what they're telling him, because that's what he was tweeting, is that, did you hear all the cheers? No. So then
the jeers.
Then a few days, within a week, he goes to a UFC fight.
Which he helped start the UFC.
Which is a fighting,
and
ultimate fighting.
There's a culture around the UFC. And it's not a bad one. And there are lots and lots of liberals and Democrats that love, like, ultimate fighting.
Yeah.
But...
not me.
So he walks in to horrendous boohoo's
with Don Jr.
Again.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really wasn't good.
It was probably worse. It was probably worse because it was inside, and the boos were so resounding. Because I've watched that one a few times. Woke my husband up listening to it when because I was, doing it first thing in the morning, playing with the Twitter and saw it, and I thought, I don't feel bad for the guy because he's brought this on himself. And there was a really great...
Oh, I don't feel bad for him at all.
No. There was a great opinion piece in the Chicago Tribune. I'm going to look up the name of the woman that wrote it because I talked to you about it before. And she was talking, Delene Glaston, sorry. And she wrote a column for the Chicago Tribune talking about how the president...
Editorial.
Yeah, well...
It was an opinion.
It was an opinion. So she was talking about how the president comes to town and we throw him this welcoming air quote party, and he's never going to see it firsthand because he's zooming by in whatever, secure motorcade or air support that he's got. And she said, but the thing that he needed to do is listen to these people because these are the people that he's letting down.
He won't listen to these people.
No.
So it was a nice sentiment on her part.
Right.
But he won't listen to these people.
But that's how he ends up getting booed.
Here's something really interesting about him.
Yeah.
There have been times that he has actually had real encounters with people. Not staged encounters, not after the shooting. Where the baby came in for a picture, a photo op.
Oh.
Not the ones where he puts the chocolate bar on the minion's
We're going to
head.
talk about that in a minute, too.
None of this, but there have been actual moments in his presidency where he's heard something, talked to someone that resonated with him, and you've seen him switch position. And then he'll give it back up when Putin and the GOP tells him he can't. But... he does get affected by things, surprisingly enough, and he's
mass shootings.
Yeah,
twice he's made overtures that things will change, and then walks it right back.
Oh yeah. Oh, so in the last week, we'll talk about the minion in a second, but he bribed 3 senators in order to have them not vote for impeachment when it comes to a jury. He doesn't understand how the actual judicial system works and how the process works.
Right, I just don't know.
He started attacking Elizabeth Warren.
Oh, yeah. Here we go. We're off of Joe Biden.
Off of Joe Biden, but now we're on to Elizabeth Warren.
What if we decided we're going to call her because he was calling her Pocahontas and that failed? Does he have a new moniker for her? Well, you know that he's really nervous when he comes up with a moniker.
He's really... no, he's never given Nancy one. He typically doesn't give women nicknames.
Okay.
Pocahontas, sure, but he will give...
Oh, yeah, he did. Rosie O'Donnell used to call something.
Pig or something like that.
I don't remember. It was something very derogatory. But that's how toddlers play, is they get derogatory and stupid, So, but let's talk about the minion thing, because if you haven't seen the video of like these wax figures, Melania and DJT giving out candy at the White House for Halloween. In addition to
it looked like the Munsters, the way the decorations were cool. They had these silhouetted trees and everything.
Was that left over from her Christmas decorations 2017? Because that was so heinous.
They were some dark trees.
They were dark trees for Christmas.
I remember, yeah. She did it all in black.
Oh, it was horrible.
But this was cool. It was
horrible.
lit well. It was designed well.
Well, maybe she's gotten a better decorator.
But unfortunately, you just see how completely out of touch with reality
they don't know.
Are.
They're so insulated from reality. And
so these little kids are coming up and they
first he had them build a brick wall. They
build the wall. So the White House, what they do is they have different areas of the White House where different correspondents work, where there's a press pool, where there's advisors, where there's, all the different things you need to run a country. And then throughout that, they decorate the halls so that when the kids come through, it's full of spirit. This was the first year that they didn't put up ghosts and skeletons. They put up a brick wall. They had a craft station
for
kids to make a wall with a sign over it that said, "Build the wall."
Doesn't that sound like something Kellyanne Conway would come up with? I mean, just so jackass. Her and Gates were probably working on it.
So anyway, here's this little minion.
Oh, yeah. The minion comes along. Now, to me, this is Reaganomics and the Republican ideology in the truest form. They put candy on top of the minion So it's there. He's near it.
But he can't get it.
He can't reach it.
And the worst part is, put it on, it slid off. He put another one on top. It wasn't like...
It was like, I'm a robot.
Okay, so if you're not watching, I'm taking my phone, pretending it's a candy bar, and I'm going to strike Heidi on the head with it.
Yeah.
So he put it on the head and was like, and it fell off.
And Melania then puts one on.
And then he does another. I'm like, are you kidding? What is wrong with you?
So
this is a kid.
Here is the typical stupid Republican bootstraps thing. You know, the kid can't bend over to pick up the candy. Now we've had 3 pieces plopped on his head and it's fallen off. Here's candy, but you can never have it. That is Republican ideology 101. Murray, in truest form, I think that's a meme. So
that should be, I think somebody can do that, probably.
Yeah. I mean, I've never seen anything so Reaganomics in my entire life, you know. Oh, yeah. So, but that's, me, I hate Ronald Reagan. So here's the other thing that we saw is that there just was like no connection with the people that came. They were there doing their duty, air quote, duty, because I'm betting you that they couldn't have been there. I think the press said that they were there like 45 minutes, which must have been excruciating for Melania to actually have to pretend like she was interested that long.
For all of them, probably.
Yeah. Oh, how many children do I have to do, Donald? Before I can leave.
So
go back to my apartment.
Trump, he's had a rough week. He is being impeached. The impeachment, everything needs to be out in the open. No, not out in the open. In fact, he just tweeted today that he feels that there should be 2 sides of the transcripts from conversations with witnesses. 2 sides? 2 transcripts. I don't think he understands the word transcript. Transcript is a direct, exact... It's a word for word printout of what was said.
But he thinks there should be 2 sides?
He believes that there should be I think he thinks that there are reports from both sides. So the Republicans who are listening and talking to these witnesses need to write up their own transcript. And then to counteract the Democrat transcript. That's what he said.
That's not how that works. It's
a
compilation of all of the people that were interviewed that day. And their questions and answers. A transcript is just a line by line detailed synopsis of what not a synopsis, but a detailed of what exactly happened, what exactly was said. You can't have two different things. Number one, it's going to be recorded, it's going to be videotaped, and there's people in there whose job it is to type it up. Like a court reporter. That's how that works. Now, let's talk about what Matt Gaetz did. Because, here's a man that could literally cost us our lives. Literally. And this is information that I got from a podcast by another senator. So what happens is the SCIF is this very ultra-secure area where they do depositions and they do briefings for very sensitive issues. So if they're talking about the nuclear codes, it's in the SCIF because it's this very secure area. You're not allowed to bring electronic devices in. No phones, no pagers, as if we have those anymore. No cameras, no electronics. No, you're not supposed to have your laptop, your notebook, nothing. You can bring a pen and paper. That's it. And they're even specific about the types of pens and papers that can come in because everything is so secure. They don't want you to write down the nuclear codes as they're giving them out, not that they would, and then accidentally drop that piece of paper, right?
Right.
Now, Trump infamously has lost the nuclear codes twice since he's been president for several weeks. Nobody knew where they were, and they finally found him in one of his enormous clown suits that he wears. Big giant clown suit. Anyway,
so please back up for a second.
Yeah.
I was unaware of this. The nuclear codes are on a little piece of paper?
They're in what's called the football, which is a secure case.
Briefcase.
Yeah.
Right. So
it's small enough to fit in his coat pocket, and it was lost for several weeks
I thought
twice.
It was a bigger case. Okay.
No. It was small enough to be slipped into his pocket of his coat, but for some reason his.
Why is anyone letting him have them in the first place?
Well, he's supposed to have them, right? Or some guy is supposed to have them that walks with him, but he had them, tucked it in his suit coat jacket, and they couldn't find it for 2 weeks. And instead of tearing the whole White House apart, they just let it go until the suit went in for cleaning, and the cleaners found it.
The cleaners found the nuclear codes.
Yeah. That's how secure we are, ladies and
Okay,
gentlemen.
and our elections coming up are going to be tainted as well. Thanks, Uncle Mitch.
Well, hold on. So let's talk about what Matt Gaetz did in his pizza party at the Skiff. Matt Gaetz is 100% wrong and lying when he says that the Republicans weren't there and present. Not everybody is on every committee, but the people who were elected and chosen for that committee were there in the room. They were represented equally, both Democrats and Republicans, and I think there was even an independent there.
Do you think it was hard to be a Republican sitting in that room on the committee, hearing what they heard and still vote no for the impeachment inquiry?
I don't think it's hard at all because they're running a bigger... It's a different end game for them. And see, here's the thing. All they voted for was the inquiry to go forward.
Absolutely.
They weren't voting on impeachment.
They were voting on the rules.
Right. So do I think they knew it was a throwaway whether they voted one way or the other, so they can look tough.
Yeah, you're right.
Look tough for re-election.
Saving the favor.
Yeah. So if they decide to flip at the end, I'll be surprised because Republicans...
I think you'll see some of them because of the polling numbers.
Well...
When Trump's popularity hits this, okay, Chicago, we expect it.
Right.
A Nationals game, maybe 50-50. A UFC?
Was shocking. That was really surprising.
Really not.
Yeah. And Murray, I do wonder about how the security was at the Nationals game and at the UFC. We know in Chicago it was very intense. We know that in Cincinnati when we went to the MAGA rally, it was pretty...
light.
It was very flaccid, I would say. It was not... Sorry, Trump
Can
was there.
Can we throw moist in there, too? Just hitting all the words today.
It was just one of those... It was like pretending to do security at the MAGA rally. I told you, it was 12 feet from the president and vice president, and I really hadn't gone through a property security clearance or screening. So, God knows, luckily I didn't... I walk around with my notebook... Well, I didn't have my notebook because I was trying to take notes, and people thought I was with the fake news. So I had to go in the bathroom and write my notes. There's a whole other show. You can tune in and watch that one. It's back a couple weeks, but you can watch it. It's still up there. But so Matt Gaetz decides, where were we? We were talking about that. Sorry.
Matt Gaetz storms the Skiff, stages a sit-in, has all of these Republican representatives come sit. There was representation there, and he does this publicity stunt to make Donald happy, to make Donald feel good about them fighting the unjust witch hunt.
And so, but, because we bounced around a little bit there. So what I was talking about is, what do you think that the security was at the UFC fight?
Right.
And at the Nationals game? Do you think it was like it was at Chicago, or do you think it was flaccid like it was in Cincinnati?
I'm going to say it's probably like it was in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
I would say that the security was probably more definitely like Cincinnati.
You could sit at a round table with our president when he was in Chicago.
For $250,000.
Yeah. Anybody. You could be a terrorist and sit there if you're paying, you're there.
Or out of the country.
Yeah. You could be anybody. You could be Todd Ricketts. Asshole.
Okay. Anyway, so this weekend, Trump, TWIT, I will tell you, between impeachment inquiry, having real non-biased witnesses coming forward and explaining things, him not understanding the difference between a transcript and a summary.
Him having poll numbers from Fox News viewers at 58%, Murray, in favor of the impeachment inquiry. If you have 58% of Fox News watchers that think something is there,
then something might be there.
Yeah, they're hearing enough. They're hearing enough through the filter of Fox News Funhouse. I don't know. It's just such a crapshoot if there's no news on it.
Well, and the difficulty is that in many areas only get certain news stations. They only get certain types of communication, and we've talked about that before.
And we're going to have to
deep dive on that.
Right. We're going to have to talk further about that. And we're going to have to pass legislation like they did in Great Britain so that it's either labeled appropriately that it is all opinion and not fact, or we're going to have to
we have to do it with newspapers.
Yes.
Editorial. It has to be opinion.
Absolutely.
Editorial. So I think that only makes common sense.
Yeah.
Then we can talk about Zuckerberg. and believing that he doesn't need to have political. We will go into that whole free speech versus in another episode.
Yeah.
Since we have been back, we won't keep you any longer. Thank you so much for joining us in our renovating studio.
For our 6 attempts to get it right and bouncing around a little bit today because we don't have our usual bullet points.
But that's all right. We did fantastic. So please like, subscribe, share.
Donate.
Check it out. Heartland Mamas.
MAMAS.com.
And you can find us on any place where you get your podcasts.
Thank you so much.
So we'll be back soon. Thanks again, guys.